On this episode of Elite Access, we had a chance to talk with the most decorated gymnast in American history, Shannon Miller. Shannon is a 7-time Olympic medalist and led the Magnificent Seven to the U.S. women's first ever team gold. And she won a gold on the balance beam, making her the first ever American gymnast to win an individual gold medal at a fully attended non-boycotted Summer Games. Shannon is a member of 8 Halls of Fame. She became a mompreneur, launching her own company, Shannon Miller Lifestyle. She's the author of several fitness and health-related books and videos. She hosts a weekly radio program. She's a television analyst and commentator. But probably her greatest title is cancer survivor. During our conversation, Shannon shares with us about a time that she almost quit gymnastics, how she overcame a severe injury just weeks before making the Olympic team, and the role that sport played in her fight with cancer. All right. Shannon Miller, welcome to Elite Access. We are so excited and honored to have you on with us.
Thank you very much. It's good to talk to you again.
I know, this is fun. So it's been a few years since we got together. You've had a lot going on, a few kids and whole Shannon Miller lifestyle and everything. So super excited to catch up. And I wanted to just start at the beginning though. You started gymnastics pretty young, like the age of 5, right?
I did.
Did you get pretty serious right away, or was it just kind of for fun, or what's kind of your background?
It was basically a way to keep us from killing ourselves at home on my parents' furniture. So we were, me and my older sister, were very active kids, and my sister wanted to do this thing called gymnastics, and of course, all I cared about was being just like my big sis. So I begged and pleaded, and my mom, she called up a few gyms in our area, and we went to the first gym that came back. She knew nothing about Olympics or elite gymnastics. It was just really tire my kids out so that they would just come home and sleep. And so that's kind of how we started. My sister went on to swimming a few months later, but I was in love. I was absolutely in love. I mean, you get to jump in a pit, you get to jump on a trampoline, swing in the monkey bars, what's not to love? And so it just became my thing. So I started out kind of an hour a week, and then it just kind of grew from there. And I think at one point, probably early on, maybe in the first year or so, when the coach said, well, can she come more often? I know my parents really had to think about that because they didn't want it to be too much. And of course, I just begged and pleaded, please, I just want to basically live at the gym.
Gotcha. Gym rat. It's a kid's heaven, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, so what was the turning point going from this fun thing that you just wanted to spend all your time at to when it became serious, I want to go to the Olympics? What was that moment for you?
For me, it was a very distinct moment. I had the incredible opportunity when I was about 7 years old to go over to Moscow, to go over to the Soviet Union, to Russia, and see how the Soviet girls trained. And this was something that it wasn't about being an Olympian or an elite athlete. I wasn't even competing or doing anything at the time. It was just an opportunity to be part of this clinic that was kind of combined with Canadian gymnasts. And so we raised money and went over there for 2 weeks. And it was this eye-opening experience for me because I realized it wasn't a magic pill. They weren't crazy with their athletes doing horrible things. It was just enjoying the sport, and they worked really hard. And I found out that I could work really hard. And if I could do that, then maybe I could be as good as they were. And so when I came back from that trip back to Oklahoma, I thought, well, this is what I want to do. And then I wanted to start competing. My club didn't have a competitive team when I started there. And so we just kind of did little exhibitions, did parades, that sort of thing. And now I wanted to really show people what I could do. And my coach came to us, there were about 5 of us in our group that wanted to start competing. And he said, we really are not going to be able to start a competitive team at this time, but here are a few coaches that I think would be very good to work with that are in our area. And Steve Nuno was one of those coaches, and he had actually been over on that Soviet Union trip with us as well. So I kind of tried out at his gym, and apparently he was okay with me. So so we worked really well together. I didn't think I really liked him all that much at first, is what my mom says, but she said that I somehow just knew. I just had that sixth sense that this was the right person for me because he wasn't going to put up with anything. He wasn't going to put up with games. He was going to expect me to do the job. And he had the same goals in mind that I did.
Were you pretty intense at that young age? I mean, you went there and then you were like, I'm doing this, and you were just, I mean, completely focused on it? Is that just kind of your personality?
Yeah, I was very competitive, am very competitive, but I was also shy. So I kind of had this, I know this bipolar thing going. I was like shy in real life, but put me on the competition floor, put me out on the floor doing a skill, and I had to nail it. And it was almost to my detriment because I was seeking out perfection to the point of almost, overdoing it. I would cry when I couldn't get a certain skill. I would just break down in tears and be inconsolable. And Steve helped me realize that mistakes are okay. You learn from it, you correct it, and you move on, and that's okay. And that was one of the best lessons of my entire career because that's life. We're all going to make mistakes, and we have to learn from it and move on.
Right. That's great. Well, now today you're a mom of two absolutely adorable kiddos, Rocco and Sterling. So are they in gymnastics?
Well, so Rocco's in gymnastics.
Oh, he is? Okay.
It's funny though, because when I say, my kids are in gymnastics, people are like, yeah, okay. So elite, Olympian, that's your goal. But that's not my goal. My goal is for my kids to find the sport that they can fall in love with. But I do know from a gymnastics background, I do know that gymnastics provides this amazing opportunity to move your body at a very early age when you can't necessarily catch a ball or hold a bat, but you can play around in a pet and you can move your entire body and work on flexibility and stability and balance and all of these great things. So so my son started when he was 16 months old. He was barely walking. And it wasn't quite walking when he actually started the class. He was walking 2 classes later. But he just needed to see some kids doing it. And I think the same with my daughter. So my daughter's first gymnastics class, it's mommy and me class, is this Saturday.
Yay! Oh, yay! That's exciting.
So I'm so excited. I got her little leotard out that someone gave her.
That is so great. I put my 2 girls in gymnastics too, kind of for the same reason, not necessarily to be an elite level gymnast, but just to have some body awareness, kind of learn coordination and learn how to wait in line because that's something we're not very good at. So.
No, that's a really good thing. Gymnastics is my son, he had to learn to wait in line, wait his turn. And when I remember when he first started, kind of early on, probably the first 6 to 8 months, when he was waiting in line. He just couldn't contain himself. It was all he could do to stay in line. So I would tell him to run if you're in line and you're not able to stand there, run in place. And so here's my child like running in place in line.
Everybody's like,
just so he would stay in one position.
That's great. Oh man. So, okay, I have read, and obviously I know you, that you were always a very good student, and like 4.0, and just, I mean, obviously I plays with the gymnastics, just fiercely focused, I think. But heading into the Olympics, you still went to school full-time and lived at home, correct?
I did.
What was that difficult? Because I think a lot of the other gymnasts were homeschooling, were training maybe twice as much. I don't know, like, how did you do that? And would you do it differently if you went back, or did you like the way it worked out? I mean, obviously you kind of did awesome.
I definitely wouldn't change a thing. For me, and I think every child's different, and you have to do what's right for that child. For me, I needed that balance. I needed to know that gymnastics is not life. If you don't win, hey, it's okay. You go back and it's about the skills. For me, it was always about learning the next skill. It was about getting as close to perfection as you could, not about what color the medal is. So for me, it was just that ability to take that step back and say, you know what? Whatever happens with this gymnastics Olympic thing, I've got my education and, and I still have my family life. I still have my friends outside of the gym, all of that good stuff. But it was important to me. And we did cross the homeschool bridge at one point when my coach really thought I should be homeschooled. It was getting close to the Olympics. Let's go ahead and do this. But I knew that as soon as I didn't have to be at school at a certain time, it was going to open the floodgates. it was going to be this very slippery slope, and all of a sudden I'd be working out 10 hours a day. So for me, it was good to have that balance of, when I'm at school, I don't have to think about that big skill that's looming out there. And when I'm at gym, I don't have to think about the physics test that I've got to take the next day. So it was kind of this idea of living these separate lives. It was kind of cool. It was kind of like I slipped on my leotard and I was, Superwoman. And then I got to kind of be at school and be the nerdy geek, and that was cool too.
I love that. That's great.
But I do think it is important to know that, these days homeschool is very different than it was, 20 some odd years ago. It's so much better now. There's so many more people doing it, so there is a lot more chance for that socialization. So, I think it really does depend on the child. I think the biggest factor is just having that family life. Being at home with my family was essential to my success. Just being able to go home at night and see my parents, and if I had a rough day, hey, it's just gymnastics.
Heading into the 1992 Olympic Games, a few months before, I think in March, you dislocated your elbow in a training accident on bars. Oh, that's gotta hurt.
I did.
So you underwent emergency surgery? You had a screw put in your elbow. I mean, what went through your mind when that was happening just a few months before Olympic trials, the Olympic Games? Yeah.
The funniest thing, I remember exactly what went through my mind lying on the floor. I glanced over, my arm was bent completely the wrong way. And what went through my mind was, I'm going to be late to beam workout tonight. Like, it just, I'm going to have to sit over there on ice before I get to beam workout. It didn't even dawn on me that this was, potentially career-ending mistake. And so that, that quickly, once we're on the way to the hospital, I realized beam was not going to happen that night. But for me, I think it was being wheeled out of the hospital the next morning. It was April Fool's Day, and it was no April Fool's joke, but I was being wheeled out of the hospital, and Steve met me at the door, and there were a lot of things that he could have said at that moment. Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. These things happen, but, we can keep working and maybe try for the World Championships. The Olympic trials were only 10 weeks away at that point. And he didn't say any of that. He looked me straight in the eye and he said, all right, we've got some work to do. See you in the gym tomorrow. And it was just, that pity party, that sorry me I could have had and broken down was just completely refocused to, all right, we've got a job to do. Let's go. And it was just the best thing ever. And not that it was easy. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It was tremendously painful, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. As an athlete, you know this. You don't want to sit on the sidelines while everyone else is training for the Olympic Games, and you're sitting in the splits because you can't use your arm. It's very difficult, but I think it made me a tougher athlete. I think it made me hungrier. Really wanted to prove myself. I was one of those kids that was not kind of an oh poor me kid. I was a watch me kid, and that really came out during that time. And it's something that I look back to often. Anytime I face a challenge in life, I immediately think of my elbow, and I've got a nice little scar here to remind me that, hey, tough things happen, but you can get through it.
Did you guys have to do anything different with your workouts to kind of get to the point of trial? Did you even compete at trials, or did you petition on? How did that work?
So our trials process at the time was two competitions. You had the national championships, and then you had the Olympic trials. At the national championships, I was, about kind of 85%, and I only did the compulsory round, which is a little bit easier on your body. And then I petitioned to the Olympic trials, not the Olympic trials. My score counted 100%. So it was all eggs in one basket, either do it or don't, but this is it. And luckily I did well. I ended up winning the trials, which was pretty amazing. I don't know how that happened, but as far as the workouts, it was tough. I remember days where I would literally just set my elbow on the vaulting horse and hold a 10-pound weight. And that was most of my workout that day, is I had to work to get my arms straightened out. My bar workout was trying to hang from the bar. Not swing. I wasn't allowed to swing. I wasn't allowed to do any skills, just hang. So it was tough, but the thing is, I got to work more flexibility. I got to work more strength. I did a lot of conditioning, a lot of stretching, and those were areas that I was really weak on. So instead of working the skills, I was forced to really work on those foundational elements, and I think that really helped me.
Little silver lining there, yeah. So I guess you
Yeah.
probably had to focus on the mental side of it too. I'm guessing you probably went through routines and things like that in your mind. And I mean, because when you're sitting there holding a 10-pound weight, what else are you gonna do, right?
What else are you going to do? Yeah, exactly. You're watching everyone else train routines and you're holding a weight. But yes, I did a lot of visualization. I did that throughout my career, but going through routines in my head. And you know this, once you go through your routine so many times, it's almost like you did train it,
Right.
because you've already mentally gone through it.
Right. Very cool. So at the 92 Olympics, just later on that summer, you led the U.S. team to a bronze medal, which I think that was the first team medal for the American women ever, right?
In a non-boycotted Olympics, yes.
So cool. And you earned a silver medal in the individual by the closest of margins, 0.012. I don't even know how you can even physically do that. But, a lot of people argued that you should have gotten gold. They still feel today that you should have gotten gold. Did that ever even come into your mind? Did you not care? Because you talked about how you're about the tricks. I mean, I guess where was your head in that, and what were your thoughts coming away from that?
Well, it's funny because these days I look back and I'm like, oh, if I would have just maybe not taken as big a step on that bounce beam dismount, or if I'd done it, I was so close. But at the time, we had no gold medals at a non-boycotted Olympics, so this was huge. I think these days we're just kind of so used to getting gold medals that it's, oh well, silver, that's nothing. But what you have to realize is becoming an Olympian is amazing. Forget about the medals, just being at the Olympics. And again, kind of after this elbow injury, it was amazing. I was on the team, much less helping win medals. So to come away with a silver at the time, it was very much this little twig leg girl from Oklahoma won a silver medal at the Olympic Games. Are you kidding me? It didn't even really sink in. So at the time, of course, there was absolutely no disappointment whatsoever. I think now, with time, the competitor in me is like, oh, I was so close. But I think it was good in many ways. I think it wasn't so blown out of proportion that I immediately retired from the sport. I was 15 years old. So for me, it was back to the gym. And I think probably a couple of years later, it helped bring out that hunger and that need to bring home a gold for the U.S.
That's great. Well, yeah, following that impressive, not only silver medal individual all around and bronze medal from the team, but you also had 3 individual event final medals, which is just amazing. So I think they said you were the only athlete at the 92 Olympics to win 5 medals. That's just surreal. And right after that elbow injury and everything, it's just such a cool thing.
It's very surreal. And I will tell you the one thing that really stands out about the 92 Olympics for me, the medals were incredible. And like I said, it took a couple decades for it to sink in about how many and whatnot. But for me, hitting 16 routines, that was, the best thing ever. For a perfectionist, just being able to stay on the equipment for 16 routines, I think helped me prove to myself and maybe to others, but mostly to myself, that I was a true all-around gymnast. And that was something that was really important to me.
Well, I think you definitely proved that for sure. And you went on after that to be the first American ever to win back-to-back world championship titles in 93 and 94. So how are you so dominant and so consistent for such a long period of time? I mean, do you attribute that to anything, or is it just hard work? Were you just that good? Like, what do you think played into that consistency?
Well, I think it's funny because when you look at the stats, if you just, you look up Wikipedia and you see the medal count, you think, oh, it was a breeze. She was just that good. But it was a tough road for me. I was not that good. I had to work and oftentimes work harder than others to get to that point. For me, it was always about doing extra. So in the gym, if I was told to do 50 push-ups, then I did 55. If I was supposed to run 10 laps around the gym, I did 12. I always did just a little bit more. Steve always says I was the only gymnast that he had that never missed a day of workout. Now, there were days I was sick and he sent me home because he just didn't want me in the gym, but, getting other people sick, but I always came in. And if I couldn't be at the gym, if, my parents took us on vacation or something, he sent a list of conditioning and stretching and foundation skills for me to work. And I would find a gym in whatever area I was, and I would do the workout. So I think, hard work, you just you can't beat that. But I think, there's probably a little talent there. And I think the mental side of it was a really important part of it for me. My faith is a huge part of that. And I think just the mental ability to kind of separate emotion and say, okay, I had a really tough warm up, but I got all the bugs out. So now let's go. Or, I had a really great warm up. So now I'm on a roll. Let's go. So just being able to, in your mind, find that positive attitude.
Yeah. Well, so I guess kind of playing off of that, what kept you motivated that long? Because most gymnasts only go to one Olympics because, you guys usually peak when you're pretty young. You not only went to two and you medaled at both and did fantastic, and you even, kind of made a little comeback in 2000. Like, what kept you motivated and wanting to go? Did you just love it that much, or was there something else?
I did just love it that much. I'm a glutton for punishment. What can I say? I loved it. And not that it was all a piece of cake. Again, you know this as an athlete. You have those really rough days. And even in talking about kind of that dominant part of my career between 1993 and kind of 92 and 95, the 1993 World Championships, for the fans out there that saw it, that was a difficult competition for me. The all-around was great, but I was hit with this weird illness. I fell 3 times during event finals on balance beam, which is kind of the most embarrassing routine of my entire career. And yes, you can relive that through the magic of YouTube. Thank you very much. But in 94, I came back. Here was another opportunity, and I pulled a stomach muscle right before the competition. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to compete. So you do have these things that aren't kind of in the stat list, in the stat sheet, that you have to go through. And that's what I want young athletes to know, is it's not easy for anyone. We all go through stuff. And for me, even between 93 and 94, that was the summer I wanted to quit gymnastics. I was adamant. I told my parents, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I was coming home from the gym every day, crying my eyes out. And I didn't really know why. And my coach, both my coaches, Steve Nuno, Peggy Liddick, I remember them sitting around the dining room table at our house with my parents. My parents didn't say a word. And Steve just said, okay, why do you want to quit? And I didn't really know. I don't want to do it anymore. My shins hurt. My back hurts. Okay, Shannon, why do you want to quit? This, that, the other. I didn't really know, though. And he said, look, let's just slow it down. Let's cut our workouts. I cut them by 2/3. I was only going in about 6 to 9 hours a week, which I was practically doing that each day. So for me, it was about kind of getting beyond that point. And what I realized over that next 2 weeks of doing shorter workouts was it was about goals. I'd lost my goal setting. I come off the Olympic Games winning 5 medals. I'd gone to the World Championships, won the all-around, and I forgot to replace those goals. And so I think that's, at the end of the day, what kept me motivated. Yes, love of the sport, but just continuing to set goals for myself. Whether it was a new skill, whether it was a routine, whether it was competition, I had to have something to look forward to, something to work toward.
Totally agree with that. It's a good story. Thank you for sharing that. So, okay, you have competed in 2 Olympic Games. You've won 7 medals, 2 gold. Is it 2 gold, 2 silver, 3 bronze? Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
Very good.
And you have 2 beautiful children. You've become a mompreneur, launching your own company, Shannon Miller Lifestyle. You've written books. You've made fitness DVDs. You host a weekly talk radio show. You've been an analyst and commentator.
You make me sound really busy.
You are. That's why I'm like, how do you do this? You've been an analyst and commentator for the Olympics. You've been inducted into, 20 Hall of Fames or something, a whole bunch of them. But I'm guessing one of your most memorable and important feats was probably beating cancer. So can you just tell me a little bit about what it was like receiving a diagnosis like that?
It's unreal. Shocking doesn't even begin to explain the flood of emotions when you're faced with a diagnosis of cancer. And here I was, a young mother. My son, at the time they found the cyst, was just over a year old. I was concerned with him, not with my own health. And it's ironic that I was running a company, helping women focus on their health, make their health a priority, and then here I get diagnosed with this rare form of ovarian cancer. For me, I admit at first I did not quite rely on those lessons learned through sport. I did go through, I guess, probably a little bit of denial and just fear. At first, it was just kind of one of those, oh, we don't know what we're dealing with. Let's just wait and observe. And it was a very scary time for me. And then after the diagnosis, after the surgery, when it was confirmed it was indeed cancer, I think, again, I could easily deny it because, okay, now the tumor has been, removed. And it wasn't until a couple weeks later that I found out I was going to need to go through a pretty aggressive chemotherapy regimen. And at that point, I think that's when all of a sudden everything changed and I reverted back to those lessons learned through sport. I was setting goals. I was ready to do the hard work, to persevere. I was going to push through and fight. And I think that's when I really, really accepted that I was now a survivor. I was someone with cancer. And I think we all know someone that's been going through this or has gone through this. Cancer will touch all of us at one point or another. But when you hear those words, I think it's just very stunning and something that, I immediately just every day, crying every time I saw my son, and had to kind of get past the sadness and find the joy of just living each day.
I can't even imagine. Okay, well, so I know you referred to your daughter Sterling as your miracle baby. Did they tell you couldn't have kids after that, or is that just something you weren't sure about?
We well, both of our kids are miracles, as yours are miracles as well. Unique baby's a miracle. We refer to Sterling as our miracle baby for a couple of reasons. First off, I had gone in for a kind of post-baby appointment with my gynecologist in, I guess, kind of early November of 2010. And at that point, we hadn't quite decided if we were ready to go for number 2 or not. We knew we wanted to have more kids, but we were trying to figure out timing and whatnot. And it wasn't until a few weeks later that we decided, okay, we're ready, let's go. So I had gone into this December appointment to just kind of get prepped for baby, get my prenatal vitamins, get the A-OK. And it was at that appointment that they found the tumor. If we had not decided to kind of go for baby number 2 and go to that appointment, it would have been a year before I had gone back. And a year with a tumor growing, it was already the size of a baseball.
And you didn't have any symptoms?
At the time, I really did not think I did. I mean, I told my doctor I felt fine. Looking back, in fact, my husband and I had talked a lot about this. Looking back, I had a lot of stomach aches, but I'd had a baby. I was just focused on him. Tummy ache, you take some Pepto and you move on. I lost about 6 pounds in kind of a month period, but again, hey, maybe I'm still losing the baby weight. Sweet. So there were, things like that you just don't think of. Am I bloated? Well, did I drink too many Diet Cokes or do I have cancer? I mean, it's one of those things. And at the time, I didn't know the symptoms and the signs of ovarian cancer. I mean, there's a lot of cancers that you kind of that are on your radar. That was not one that was on my radar. There's no family history, nothing like that. So for me, that's kind of one of the big reasons she's our miracle, just because the thought of her prompted me to go into the doctor. As far as having more kids, they had to remove my left tube and ovary along with the tumor when they did the initial surgery. And so with that, you kind of hope that the other ovary kicks in, but you never know. And then we kind of got the second blow when I found out I would have to go through this BEP, which is a pretty aggressive chemotherapy regimen, 9 weeks. And again, you don't know how much damage that's going to do to the remaining ovary. So it's kind of a long haul. And once I was declared cancer-free in June of 2011, then it was recovery. You're not feeling good like yourself at all for at least, some people say 6 months, but for me, it was at least a year. That between the fatigue and the nausea and the neuropathy, I still can't totally feel my fingertips. It's all that stuff that goes into it. And your body's not prepared for a baby. So we had to wait a full year before even trying. So I came back from the London Olympics and got the green light, and we ended up getting pregnant a month later. So it's been a whirlwind.
Fantastic. Go Sterling!
So yeah, go Sterling.
That's great. Wow.
And she's a tough little cookie, so.
I bet. She is your daughter, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, she is going to be stubborn as all get out.
So, okay, it seems like you've just done absolutely everything there is to do. What is next on your radar? Do you have any new future plans, or is it just kind of slowing down, being mom, running the company?
Oh, I don't know how to slow down. My husband says, me with time is a very dangerous thing. I have to stay busy. So, whether it's with the kids or with the company, I do a lot of motivational speaking. So I travel quite a bit for speaking throughout the year. And with the company, we shoot fitness videos, we have programs and different partnerships that we work on. Our website is getting a complete revamp, so shannonmiller.com will look very different than it does today in about 2 weeks. So make sure you check that out. Definitely. But we also have some great launches, some exciting things that are going on. A little bit of a secret. I have a book that I've been working on for the last 2 years. And it's really kind of born out of the cancer experience, but kind of goes through my life and in the ups and downs, and hopefully is just an inspiring story and something that will give people kind of some of those action items of ways that we can stay positive and be successful. So I can't say much more, but keep coming back to the website. It's going to be launching in April, so it's going to be exciting.
Well, I'm excited. Your story is fantastic, so I'm sure it will be nothing short of inspiring and motivating.
Well, thank you.
We've touched on a lot, but do you have anything else that we haven't touched on? Any words of wisdom or advice you'd like to talk about?
Oh, goodness. Words of wisdom. I feel like the older I get, the more wisdom I have because the more mistakes I've made.
That's the way life works, I think. Yeah, that'd be accurate.
Yeah. So, I think my words of wisdom and things that I talk about quite often, obviously I go back to goal setting quite often because without a goal, you have no path. You have no passion, no energy. You've got to find that dream and go for it. And it can be in your family life. It can be in your work life. It can be in your faith. It can be in all of those, but find that goal and then figure out what you need to do every single day. What do I do today? What do I have to check off my list to further myself toward that end goal? I think that's really critical. And I think for me, understanding that mistakes are okay. It's part of life. It's part of sport. It's part of business. It's definitely part of raising kids. You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Just learn from it and move on as quickly as possible. And you're probably not going to make that mistake too many times.
Right. No, well, Shannon, thank you so much for being on Elite Access with us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Elite Access, and don't forget, you can gain an even greater advantage by answering the questions that go along with this episode and checking out all the extra resources.